Anyway, local elections.
Wow.
So, local elections this Thursday, based on the average of the polls, Labour currently has the strongest public support with 42% saying they would vote for this party in a national election. That necessarily doesn't break down to the locals, but that's what we've got. The Conservatives boosted their position in the polls following the invasion of Ukraine, but the Partygate scandal has seen them drop to 34%. Just bear with us. Liberal Democrats have benefited from the scandal, now reaching 11% of the vote. Wow, princely. In Scotland, around 39% of adults are favouring the Scottish National Party, followed by Labour at 17% and the Conservatives at 10%. Surprised they even got that in Scotland, according to YouGov.
I am as well.
The Tories have the highest proportion of councillors across the country, a position they are unlikely to lose. Most English councils are electing just a third or half of their councillors, meaning major overhauls will be difficult. Here's some of the factors, according to Ipsos, which could decide people's vote. So 67%, the cost of living. Note, Labour have been saying things that they can't actually change in the locals, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
The UK government's policies for dealing with asylum seekers, that's 47%. We'll come back to that. Climate change, also 47%. The COVID-19 pandemic, 43%.
Yeah.
The UK government's proposals for reducing regional inequalities, also known as levelling up, 42%. The war in Ukraine, 38%. And lastly, stories about Downing Street parties that broke COVID regulations and Boris Johnson being fired, 37%. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the Greens are going to do well in these local elections.
Yeah. Tell me why. Why do you think so?
That is my prediction. I think, I don't know, maybe it's just like me in the Northeast. I do see some growing support for them, like South Tyneside. You know, they never used to have any councillors. I think now they've got 3. I think they've got 3 Green councillors at the moment. I know in North Tyneside, I think it's very close in terms of the support that they got at the last ones. Yeah, I'd be more interested, not necessarily how people vote, but whether people vote. I think in this one, because I think I keep seeing the phrase. I don't particularly like it, but I keep seeing the phrase "politically homeless" at the moment from people in things where it's talking about elections or or political parties in general. So I'd be interested to see what, because I think as well that it tends to be a bit rubbish, the turnout at local elections as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was even lower down there. Have you decided who you're voting for?
Nobody.
No.
I'm going back to that. I mean, it's back to the 3 usual suspects in our ward. Lib Dems, Labour, Conservatives, in case anybody didn't realise. And I don't agree with or believe in anything they've got to say or anything that they've got to stand for. I don't believe them. They're a bunch of lying bastards. I hope all of those parties burn in a skip fire very, very soon. Now, if there was a good local independent, I would possibly vote for them. Possibly the Greens at a push. But I really, on a national level, didn't like the way basically Corbyn they could have played a part in making Corbyn the head of a government of national unity and got rid of Johnson. They didn't do it. I think Caroline Lucas I can't remember exactly what she said since, but she's kind of acknowledged it. But they were fully doing the whole rah Europe thing, and it smells to me like they were doing that because they gain quite a bit of money because they do well in the European elections. Right. Also, that the policy platform is very much Remain and all of that as well. Fine, they're doing that, but we all know, Brexit was used as a as a political football, particularly in the 2017-2019 elections, and basically, I don't see any of these electoral possibilities as having. My baseline is this, and I've said this many times. What does this do for the millions of people living in poverty and the millions more being dragged into it? Nothing.
Yeah.
It's not going to do a thing. As I said, Labour are putting out election propaganda twofold. One is trying to allude that anything within the local elections can affect national policy, and it can't. So they're giving it the whole like, Labour will help you with this and help you with that to do with the cost of living crisis. You ain't doing shit. You aren't like, and even if you did get in on a national level, it doesn't meet people's needs. The second thing that they're doing is like this kind of Blairite revisionism. Tony Blair polls as one of the most hated people in Britain. But on the Labour right, they seem completely deluded to this fact. So they're positioning him and like trying to allude that Starmer's kind of like within that same milieu. Whereas Starmer got elected on Corbyn continuity and party unity. So that's why a lot of people like stuck around and, oh, well, I'm going to give him a chance. Whereas at the time, we, others were saying, don't trust him, you can't trust him, here's a reason why you can't trust him. But people were so tired and fatigued at the time, I understand completely why they rounded on and attacked me rather than dealt with the fact. Don't like it, but fuck you.
Yeah.
But look, I take no pleasure in being right on this at all.
No,
at all.
No. And I think the reason the Greens are going to do well, I think particularly when people felt disillusioned between the two main parties, Labour and Conservative, was, they would vote for Lib Dem often as like a third option. But I think because of the coalition and everything that happened there, Lib Dems are still right out of favour. And I think we are starting to see kind of Greens sort of come through. And I did I was reading The Independent, which was talking about, kind of a rise in Green voters, in the northeast, and they were talking about South Tyneside actually. So like me eyes kind of like pricked on it, and they were asking different people, and that it's been quoted. One guy they spoke to, Paul Ahmed, who was a retired firefighter, had been a lifelong Labour voter, which obviously kind of very typical in that area, had said that he was going to be voting Green after he'd always been a life. So they said, they said why, and they said, they, meaning Labour, are the only party you'll see around here. Labour's taken this town for granted, and I'd sooner kill myself than vote Tory. It's a bold way of putting it, Paul, but I think there's a lot of people who've kind of done that. My issue with all of them is that I've seen very little into what different candidates from across the board are actually proposing. The nearest I've got, and I was going to say this tonight anyway, is vote for us because we're not Tories. And that is literally kind of like the only, they haven't said what they were doing. I was going to talk about this anyway tonight on the live stream. And then when I got home, my partner mentioned that somebody, some canvassers had knocked on the door and had asked for me personally, not for him, who is also on the electoral register, but had asked for me, and I wasn't in at the time. And they said, they were from the Green Party. Now, he voted for them the last time in the local elections, which might be why they weren't interested in talking to him, because they might see him as a sure bet anyway. I have sometimes voted Labour in previous ones. At the last local elections, I spoiled my ballot because I was that hacked off with a lot of them for not saying anything other than we're not Tories. And I said, oh, what did they say? When you said, he went, oh, I told them I voted Green. And I said, all right, what did they say? Like, why did they, what are they proposing for the area? And he said, they said, oh, well, it's really important to vote this time because we're only behind them by a couple of 100 votes. Is that right? So their strategy was vote for us because, we've got a good chance of beating the Conservatives. Vote for us because we're not Tories. Now, I'm not just singling the Greens out for this. Everybody who isn't, every candidate who isn't the Conservative Party is doing this at the minute. It's like, you need to vote for us to get them out. Well, that's not good enough. You need to say what you're going to do. You need to say why you are good for this area. You need to show that you're bothered about the same local issues, but like none of them seem to be doing that. That might vary obviously in different areas. Other people might know their candidates a bit better, but I see very, very little. And I think, well, why should people vote for you?
I would we both know this. I'm preaching to the choir with you, but like, system change, anybody? We don't actually need to rearrange more deck chairs on the Titanic. We need system change, and that's not going to come. So, well, it's certainly not going to come anytime soon through the ballot box. I know that. So where does that then leave her to gain system change? In breach of social media's community guidelines, if we were to talk about it.
Well, to quote Ursula Le Guin, we live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but so did the divine right of kings. And that's all.
And that's as far as I'll go with what I could be saying after this.
But no, I mean, I'm definitely, I'll never tell people to vote. I'll never tell people not to vote. And people might kind of say, all right, well, we've got this councillor who seems really sound. We met them, they've got some good ideas on what we can do around this local issue. Great. That's fine. I've never ever tell people not to exercise their right to vote if they want, but I do understand why people feel disillusioned with it. And as I say, I've always been a person who's kind of jumped the fence on either side on that issue. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I haven't actually decided with this one yet. I'll probably decide on Thursday. We'll see.
Well, if you've got I mean, have you got anybody other than the usual suspects standing?
What?
In your ward?
Other than Labour?
Lib Dem, Labour and Conservative?
Yes, we have.
Another somebody who you would potentially consider? As I say, I'm basically going to have to seek each one out. I mean, obviously I'm not voting Tory. I'm just not. I don't need to bother with them. I never will. But the others, I'm going to have to actually seek out who they are and look at what their policies are, because in terms of what I've had through the door, and I've had a few things, they've told me very little about what they would do. So this is what happened at the local election as well. I ended up, kind of looking them up, trying to find out what their policies were. The most I ever found was, some copied and pasted stuff from their national websites, nothing that was ever, local to the to each specific area. So that's what I'll be doing, and then I'll make a decision. Fair play to you. I won't. Let's take some comments before we have to, because we're just a bit pushed for time.
Yeah.
So what we got? Robert Grady is saying here it's Plaid Cymru, Labour or Green. Haven't seen anything at all from the Greens yet. Right. I would vote for Welsh Labour. Drakeford's doing a canny job by the looks of it, and Plaid Cymru might also. Had a meeting with the MP for Plaid actually a few months ago, Ben Lake. Really nice bloke, genuine as well. Like, right. So there are some genuine MPs around, so that may have, like, if I was able to vote in Wales, that may have done it. And like I say, with the Greens, like, I'd rather a Green government than not, but it's not really going to happen apart from in a potential coalition. Who knows? And this is the locals, isn't it? And it's like, I mean, both the Tories and Labour appear to be using it as some kind of like proxy general election in the way that their messaging is coming out.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
And that leaves us deeply uncomfortable because like that's not how any of this works.
No.
Like the way, like, just to describe to people, because you see it in comment sections in the local papers a lot, where it's just like Labour have done nothing for. I'm using Newcastle, the North East, an example.
Yeah.
Labour have done nothing for us, right? People know generally, if they've tuned in or like whatever, about my feelings about the current iteration of the Labour Party. But to be fair, it's not their fault. The way it works is you get a block grant from the government, the national government. That's then filtered down. There's some arithmetic that decides who gets what. Northern Independence Party put out what they consider to be the North and have said that in that area, public grants for local authorities have dropped by 3.5 billion, whereas in the south east, I believe it is, they've went up 3.4 billion. So I think you wouldn't have to be a mathematician to maybe get your head around what's going on. So when people start slagging off like local Labour councils, please look and see what happened to that block grant.
Yeah.
Because I virtually guarantee you it's been slashed to bits and they're not really able to run services. I mean, you've seen in Liverpool recently, I think it was 5 or maybe even 6 councillors resigned the Labour Party and are now standing as independents because they refuse to put like a reduced budget in. They refuse to sign that off.
Yeah.
They just were like, I'm just not putting my name to this. Like, this isn't going to like meet the needs of the people of Liverpool. And God bless them for doing that.
Yeah, God bless them.
So, in terms of this, me personally, sorry, I've just hit the wrong one there. Me personally, I'm not voting. I've not changed. You know, I've only always said that I'll only ever participate in this whole sort of ballot box thing if there was something that I could fully believe in. Now, in 2017 and 2019 general election, there was a party who had a manifesto which was costed by Nobel Prize winning economists, and were very careful to do it because they knew what would happen. It made no difference because the worst smear campaign possibly in all of history, certainly in my lifetime, was executed really well. And those millions of people who live in poverty can go and burn, according to the people who did it. And that's people on the Labour right. That's people within the Tories. That's like your Lib Dems. That's like a lot of people who would benefit from a progressive alliance. And what the progressive alliance is supposed to be is like Labour, Lib Dems, the Greens. Oh, let's all get together and get the Tories out. Why? For what reason? Like, the only people that a so-called progressive alliance would benefit are people who've already got money. Like, in reality, it might be slightly better for a certain amount of people. But if we can't have everybody's basic needs being met, nobody left behind at all, then I'm not interested in your system. Or if there's not a like scope within that system through the ballot box for that to actually change, where it's so rational that everybody should be looked after. If you look at like cost of living, house prices, all of these things, a sticking plaster does not cover an open sore. Simple as that. Does not happen. So I will not participate in your stupid fucking system until you fix your fucking system. Otherwise, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get rid of your fucking system because people are starving.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say about like this absolute charade. Because that's all this is. It's a charade. But anyway, by all means, do go and vote. Don't listen to me. What I do shouldn't influence what you do. We're having conversations here. This isn't like me stating this is what should happen.
No, absolutely.
If you go and vote, I ain't judging you. Like, please do. But please, similarly, don't start calling me like I'm bolstering the friggin' Tories by choosing not to participate in what I consider to be a charade.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to, I could rationally illustrate why it is one. But
yeah.
I think
whatever we do, we have to make sure that, you know, whether we do exercise the right to vote or whether we decide not to participate, that we're not relying on that no matter what our own personal decisions are, we're all still kind of working within our communities to, you know, to try and help the people around us. And I think a lot of us are doing that, and it's about striving to do that as being the most important thing rather than, you know, begging for, you know, some small mercies from people who might not even have the power to change anything. So.
Indeed. I fully agree with you. Really interested to hear what people are thinking about this. So please do get in touch if you listen to this after the fact, as most especially as well, and let us know where you're at and what you're doing. Possibly we'll do some kind of like follow-up show after the election. And if you'd like to hear full episodes first, please go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube, or support our work via Patreon and PayPal. Links are in the description. Cheers.